Look, as a manager of people, as an employer, as an entrepreneur, and as even an investor in startups, I can tell you the most important thing for your business is the quality of the people you hire. The best part is that great candidates are already on LinkedIn. Employees hired through LinkedIn are 30% more likely to stick around for at least a year compared to those hired through the leading competitor. And I will tell you that the great thing about LinkedIn is that you're not just looking at random people. You're able to see the people who your friends and trusted peers and colleagues, who they trust and who they've hired in the past and who they recommend. And hiring doesn't have to be complicated. Realistically, when you have a business to run, you don't want to spend hours on hiring. You want to hire the right person as quickly as possible. That's why LinkedIn Jobs AI Assistant suggests immediately 25 great fit candidates daily so you can invite them to apply and keep things moving. Hire right the first time. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/Altucher, then promote it to use LinkedIn Jobs' new AI assistant, making it easier and faster to find the top candidates. That's linkedin.com/Altucher. Post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.
This isn't your average business podcast, and he's not your average host. This is the James Altucher Show.
Yeah, I was there on election day, yeah.
I think I saw that. Yeah, I was there. I was speaking on election day for this Jewish organization with a guy, Michael Rappaport. You know, probably know him, the comedian.
Yeah.
It was a bunch of...
He used to perform in my club.
Oh, yeah? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy. He's kind of... I like him a lot, but, you know, he's just like so intense. Like there were four of us speaking. This woman, Ariella Novak, who's like a journalist, kind of promoter for mainly Israeli, public relations, just because it's so bad. She spoke, and then this guy, Peter Himmelman, who is Bob Dylan's son-in-law. So, his father-in-law won the Nobel Prize, which my daughter's, kids won't be able to say, but my husband won't be able to say. But
you never know. It's that the story is not over yet.
Yeah, that's right. And then it was me, and then Michael spoke, and he came like almost at the end. He was the last speaker. And I was like, I want to be the last speaker. I want to take James Altucher's advice that, go on before. Everyone's like, oh, he's going to be amazing. And he was good, but he was very morbid and very depressed. I mean, he hasn't worked a single movie since October 7th. Nobody returned his phone calls, and he was very emotional about that and explaining his upbringing and how, he wasn't as connected to Judaism. He married someone who's not Jewish, and then she made him, come back. She converted to Judaism and got him into... Anyway, I went up third after like this political commentator, and then Peter's a musician. And I was like, I have one job, which is to only use half as many F-bombs as Michael Rappaport's going to use. And if I can't promise I can do that, but I will try to do that.
That's funny.
And we had, it was really good. Mine was pretty lighthearted and made a lot of jokes and talked about, it was 150 people in this event space and somebody's, loft, basically this huge loft in it was like the middle of Midtown. Like it was like 30th Street and 6th Avenue. Like you can't get any more, close to the middle of at least the parts of Manhattan that we go to, right?
That used to be a really horrible area. And now it's like any other area of New York. It's basically been sanitized and it's totally great because of people who were the opposite of Mamdani.
Yeah, I know. That's the whole thing. It's like he's drafting off the vapors that they all laid. But that's the classic story, in history. I actually, I think he's horrible. I think he's a horrible, person and leader, has no experience of leading a budget of $10,000, let alone $100 billion. But, I kind of felt like when I was there, there's just so much emphasis placed on energy and the youth and the looks and this and that. And, Cuomo couldn't have been a worse candidate. Like I thought, I didn't even know who's Mamdani. I was actually there in the primary too in June. For some reason, I was there for both political events. And I remember thinking, like, I don't even know who this guy is, but he has the benefit of not being Mamdani. And then this Curtis Sliwa guy is like, I remember him as a kid thinking he was a clown.
Yeah.
And he did a lot of, damage.
Guardian Angels.
Yeah, the guardian angel, but it was always like about him. Like, there's no like, who's the successor to Curtis Lewa? Like,
Yeah, right. Good point.
yeah. So I think he's done a horrible job. Good leader, creates a lot of people that follow him, but a great leader creates a lot of leaders. There's no one in that organization's done. Basically. I mean, I haven't seen a guardian angel, since 1985 or something, right?
So 30% of Jews, or of the Jews who voted, 30% of them voted for Mamdani. Why would any Jew vote for him? And look, I spoke to Jewish people who were in favor of him, and they're like, "Oh, I haven't really seen any evidence that he is against Jews or Israel." Like, people are just shutting their eyes.
Just like ignorant, right?
I've seen people literally, like, Brian, you're very, very smart. You Nobel Prize. I've seen people like you who have said the exact opposite.
Look, Jim Simon's daughter, she's one of the smartest people that I've met. He was certainly the smartest person, that I ever knew as an adult. And she donated $250,000 to Mamdani's, campaign. And she's Jewish. She's actually, very connected to Judaism. She doesn't even live in the city, and she was one of his biggest donors. And that was a surprise. And Jim Simon's daughter, so her younger sister, converted to Judaism and is married to an Orthodox Jew. So they weren't voting for him at all. They were voting against him. And then her sister is Jewish also, is not only voting for him, or couldn't vote for him, but was donated a tremendous amount of money. So why do they do this? I think, well, first of all, I have to point out the humor in the fact that in the election in Minneapolis mayor, which is, equally important to New York City, right? A Jew beat out a Muslim, thanks to the votes of Muslims, because they didn't vote for the Somali candidate. So Jacob Fry, I think he's Jewish, and he won, and he wouldn't have won without the support of the Somalis, and their clan, kind of rivalry.
Yeah. By the way, though, like, just thinking about this conversation, it disturbs me that religions are like political parties. Like, we're talking about the Jew beat the Muslim beat the Jew, as opposed to like the guy who.
Joke, but in New York, it's tied to Jew. I mean, it's like saying, the Jew. If an Arab, which often happens, wins an election, a Muslim or Druze person in Israel, that's newsworthy, because Israel's a Jewish, is a predominantly by far majority Jewish state. And New York City has the largest population of Jews outside of Israel. So I think in this case, I don't think Minneapolis, it makes sense. That was just a joke.
But, right. But your point is true that, look, this is a person who has, in statements that I've seen, either skirted the issue of, like, he has said globalize the,
Intifada. No, that's a call for genocide against Jews.
Yeah, it literally is. Like, it's in Hamas's.
He rapped about the Holy Land Five. I mean, that was like his biggest heroes. They were they're a designated affiliate with terrorist organization. His imam, one of his imams, and the worst thing though is his father is a professor at Columbia, and he has these completely virulent and outrageous hatred towards America. He claims that the Nazi Germans learned how to exterminate Jews and commit the Holocaust from America, from Abraham Lincoln, from the treatment of the Indians, as if there was no, history in Europe for 1,000 years or more of persecutions, pogroms, exterminations, Kristallnachts, all sorts of things that happened. And so he was making the case that Abraham Lincoln was Hitler's guru. It's so preposterous, but that's his primary influence. Then a secondary influence is this imam who was an unindicted co-conspirator in the first World Trade Center bombings in 1993, which I remember very well. And then he raps about the Holy Land Five, globalize the Intifada, claims he has the power to arrest Netanyahu as a sovereign, claims that the International Criminal Court trumps the United States laws. So no, and he doesn't say this about any other, but I want to say one thing. I think that we should be led by the most extreme right wing of the left wing party and the most extreme left of the right party. In other words, those are very high agency people, like people that can, see the flaws in their own party, still predominantly defend the ideas, understand the ideas. And so I would like to think, if there are people like Mamdani supporters who are Jewish, if they are reasonable, if they say, look, I just don't care. Like, he's not the mayor of Jerusalem. He's the mayor of New York City. That's an argument. I mean, you can't ignore the stuff that borders on, Jew hatred or Israel hatred. Can't ignore that. But if they said, look, like Elizabeth Simons, so she was the daughter of Jim. If I talk to her, I'm sure she has rational reasons, like economic reasons. But I also think his economic things are outrageous, like government run grocery stores and buses.
And that's
you lived
just
there
it.
for your whole life.
Yeah, look, and I was there on election day and afterwards, and look, that really is the reason to not vote for him, is that his economic reasons are so infantile. But I talk to my daughters who live there, and they don't know economics, and they hear things like, redistribute from people who are too wealthy to people who are poor, but also work really hard. Look, it sounds great. I think these economic issues always start maybe idealistically with good intentions, and I'm giving the benefit of the doubt completely. But I think when taken over by politics, the politicians know that when you cater to that group that isn't motivated by good intentions, you could win elections and not fulfill your promises and keep winning re-elections. And look, that's how you get socialist fascist countries. Like Venezuela is a great example. Chavez was always a proponent of, hey, let's stop the corruption, let's give to the poor. And then what happened? He takes over, and then his successor, Maduro, becomes the most corrupt, and everybody becomes poorer. Like Venezuela is a perfect example. All the well-to-do, I'm not even talking about rich, but all the well-to-do and educated and, people hiring other people and building businesses, they all left. Millions of people left. And the rest either got poorer or became corrupt. And the same thing's going to happen. I will say this, and this is happening on local elections, but it started at national elections. Look at all the elections since 2000 or 2004. 2004 is W versus John Kerry. They're from the same skull and bones Yale Society. I'm not saying this from a conspiracy point of view. They were the same people. Okay, then you have Barack Obama, John McCain. They weren't all that different on economics and a lot of political issues.
Yeah.
Barack Obama, Mitt Romney, they were the exact same. I mean, Obamacare is derived from Romney Care in Massachusetts.
Exactly, yeah.
But then things get a little bit more polarized. You have Trump versus Clinton, Trump versus Biden, Trump versus Harris. Everything is getting more polarized. And the people who are active, now you have guys like Nick Fuentes on the right. He's just lunatic.
Candace Owens, who we're going to talk about.
Candace Owens. And then on the left, you have Mamdani and Ilhan Omar and AOC. Like you have these people who are just insane, and they're the ones shaping the narrative of the country. When you're right, that is a great thing you just said, which is that let's have the most right-wing people run the Republican Party. Let's have the most left-wing people run the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
But then you get into the Republicrats, which is what is really the difference.
Right.
And
exactly.
So I don't know. There's no solution. You just have to kind of focus on the things you love and do the best you can.
Yeah, I mean, I always feel like my older brother moved out of California 2 or 3 years ago. He moved to a conservative state in the South. He just hated the wokeness in California. One of his sons, he was a valedictorian, and these schools, my graduating class was 65 people, and I ranked in the top 10 of those 65 people. I'm very proud of that, James. But
there was 9. When you say you're in the top 10, that means you were 10th. It's
exactly.
I was in the top 8 of my class.
That's right. I said I won a Signal podcasting award. You helped vote for that, and
yes,
I won the award. I don't say it's a bronze award, but if you didn't know, you might think, oh, there's only a bronze award. So if you say he's bronze certified, anyway, you're right. So he moved. Yeah. So my nephew was a brilliant kid. He got he was a valedictorian in a class of 1,500 kids at his school in California. He got a 1560 on the SATs. And that was the COVID year, they didn't take, it was the first year of applications after COVID. So it was 2020, 2021. So that was Black Lives Matter. And that's when California decided they were going to abolish the SAT requirement. So that didn't help him. He didn't get into UC Berkeley. He didn't get into any of the top UC schools. He didn't get into, I don't know if he got into UCSD, but he didn't get into, Berkeley even. He didn't get into Harvard, any of the Ivies. So he went to, one of the best schools in the South. He ended up dropping out. Now he's helping this incredible technology firm. But anyway, so I just think it's incredible how much we went through. And yet, so we have this wokeness where people are just moving out of town. But I told my brother, I said to him, look, if Gavin Newsom determines your happiness, you're doing something wrong. Unless they're coming to the gates and, Jason Calacanis, had this tweet last week and he was like, you got to start making plans like you're a Jew in Germany if you live in California. Not from an anti-Semitic perspective, thank God, but But from a perspective of like wealthy people need to leave California and they need to have 5 destinations inside the country. And did you see this post by Jason?
No, I didn't.
So he's basically like making the claim like there was no flag that went up in 1935 in Germany, and there's similar things are going to happen in California. You got to get out. And, a lot of people wrote back, oh, Austin, Texas, or Atlanta, like all these. But, some people wrote back, you got to stay and fight. And, my argument to my brother was like, yeah, I mean, if Gavin Newsom, like every day is controlling your happiness, then, when you move to whatever state you're thinking you're in now, and the local school board is just as woke as any place in California, because he moved to a college town. So it's, the same, like Atlanta is not like some Republican, enclave, right? So I think he's sort of, chased this ephemeral thing, but for the wrong reason. That, again, if you let politicians make your life choices for you or decide your mood setting, I think you're in a world of hurt. You'll never be satisfied. Like, even if you're happy that Trump won, look at the backlash that he's getting. Everybody lost in the elections, the Republicans, and every Democrat won, including Mondami. So it's like a pendulum, and maybe it'll swing back, maybe it won't. But the fact is, 99% of your happiness should come from your health, your family, your friends, your work, and things that have nothing, unless you work in government, which, some of my friends do, and all these redistricting things. But it's like, to me, that's outsourcing your happiness in the worst possible way. Like, it's one thing to outsource your happiness in your job. Like, I would like to, have more listeners on my podcast. I am jealous of how many listeners you have, the advertisers you have. Now, maybe you're jealous of my YouTube, subscribe, and then I'm jealous but like, at least that's something positive. Like, it encourages me. Wow, I got to get LinkedIn back as a sponsor. They're sponsoring James, and James and I are, in kind of, we occupy kind of similar levels of audience, intellect or whatever, right? So I'm like, why aren't they advertising with me? They used to do that. And but it's trying to make me better. I'm not thinking like, oh man, the Newsom and this other guy, who's poised to take over from me, like, or this woman, like, it's awful. And I can look at the beach right now. I'm in the mountains, and I'm looking at the mountains, and they're going to be covered in snow soon. I'm just like, this is like so beautiful here. Yes, I pay a price, but I don't let people in Sacramento determine my happiness level. Like, I can't.
Yeah, no, I agree with you to an extent. Like, let's say your living surroundings do have an impact. Like, and if the people around are all hate Jews, for instance, you don't want to be around them. And I'm not saying people in New York, obviously, New York City is not an anti-Semitic city, but it's just disturbing when you see some of this stuff, and you see people kind of ignoring the things that he said. And look, I moved out of New York City.
If he was smart, James, he would put all like Orthodox Jews, not the crazy, Hasidic people that hate Israel and wanted Iran to, get the nuclear bomb because they have this, kind of eschatological perspective on the end time. Those are insane people. But if he got some, like, he's like, look, I want to extend an out. He could be mayor. The guy's 35 years old, 34 years old. He could be mayor for like a decade or whatever.
Well, he could be president. I mean, look, he
can't be president. He's born in Uganda.
I didn't know that. He wasn't born here? Because people have been talking about him in that, people are saying he could potentially be a presidential candidate if he does well in New York City, but legally now he can't. So
for now, unless things change, but no, if he was smart, and that's why another thing, like, I don't think he's that smart. First of all, he didn't get into Columbia where his dad teaches. His mom's a multi-millionaire, successful Hollywood producer. His dad teaches like anti-American, anti-Israel studies at Columbia. He didn't get into Columbia. He lied on his application and said he was African-American because he was born in Uganda. He's lied like conspicuously. He said that like intifada means like the Warsaw Ghetto uprising was just an intifada. Like, no, the intifada is like always going on, and its main goal is, as happened yesterday in Israel, is to punish, kill, maim as many Jews as possible. It's not the Warsaw Ghetto uprising where they were resisting. I
just want to say, by the way, that's not just your opinion. That's in the charter, the founding charter of Hamas. Like, kill Jews is the words in there.
Yeah, it was destroy Israel. I mean, if you want to be technical, I did look at the charter a couple of years ago, and they did remove that, that phrase, but it was in their founding charter. You're absolutely right. So, but if you live in Atlanta in the summer, as you do, and you say like, this is pretty miserable, and like my whole life is horrible, like, but you can wait until October. I bet it's pretty nice now in November, and like it's decent getting near the holidays, right? So like, there's things that are going to change, but like your net set point of happiness is not determined by the climate, is it? I mean, or the scenery. Yeah. So I think feel the same way about politics. Like, I don't have to look at these people at all. Like I can look outside and be super happy right now. I can go to the beach. I can go take my kids and go to an amusement park. There's like, and I hate the kind of insane. I mean, we had just last week, I don't know if you saw this online. I mean, it was like 100 million impressions, but UCSD, to our credit, released this horrific report that we have this remedial math class, and we're one of the...
I did see that. Yeah. Okay. Describe what it is, and then I'll ask you a question.
Yeah. So this is another example of kind of the extrema within the extrema. I call it like the mini max, like who's the most extreme right in the left, kind of thing. So in this case, it was academics, who by their nature are pretty extreme, and they have horrible ideas and should never be allowed near the levers of power. And I speak as an academic. And we did a study on these on a course that we offer to incoming students. It's called remedial math. And that remedial math class is meant to kind of make sure everyone's on the same page, because we got rid of standardized testing, thanks to Governor Newsom and the legislature, 2019, 2020, BLM, and Ibrahim X. Kendi was consulted by many states to formalize their admissions policies at universities. And he said it's the most racist, something to the effect, like it's one of the most racist, tools of modern social engineering, the SATs. And so all these things conspired to get rid of these standards of admission for UCSD. So all these kids would come to UCSD, not all, I mean, it was about 900 a year out of 40,000 total students, say 12, 15,000 incoming freshmen. And they take this remedial class. And of that 1,000 kids that take the class over the year, 25% of them could not solve problems of the following kind: 6 plus X equals 7 plus 2. And you might say, well, like, okay, well, that's remedial math, so of course they have to take, but something like more than 25% of the kids that took remedial math passed high school calculus.
This is what I don't understand. I feel like there's something wrong with that test then, because obviously 3 plus 6 equals 7 plus 2. You learn this in first grade. And so you're saying they passed calculus. There's something doesn't add up. Like, it feels like there's something like really much wronger than just the fact that they're...
Yeah, that's why I said it's impressive that the study was commissioned by the math department. And, and it took a lot of courage to produce this. Like John Fetterman, like, again, he's like very courageous to go against the left, or even Chuck Schumer, like, you may not like that he did that, but you can't deny it's courageous. The act was courageous. But so they published this report. It was actually published by the Academic Senate, which is the main governing body of faculty and academic affairs. And no, I mean, now you can argue maybe that's like some of the kids just guessed, or like they just didn't take the test seriously, or blew it off, or copied off somebody else. But anyway, there is certainly, I've noticed in my classes, a marked decline in the caliber of the performance of the students that are from UCSD. I'm teaching a class now in quantum mechanics, including quantum computers, which we got to talk about. But the quantum mechanics students that I have, about a quarter of them are from, it just turns out they're from Spain. They're like exchange students. And they all come to class every lecture. They all consult with each other. They're all doing really well. And then of my of the native UCSD students that are, matriculated since the beginning, they're not as good. I mean, the average one is not as good as these exchange students. So like, what is the reason for that? Well, many of them came from California schools. Many of them were educated during COVID. And it's just a challenge that they are suffering from, maybe their high school preparation. But now by the time I see them, they're juniors or seniors, even at UCSD. And some of them can't pass basic aspects of calculus, which are necessary for this class. So I do think there's some correlation with reality in that test. It's not maybe...
But how could they be passing calculus in high school and failing that one question?
Exactly.
That seems like there's something either the test results are wrong, or this is like fake news somehow. Like I don't even understand.
Well, there's
like
the
how that
difference
happens.
between the standards of a high school could be totally different. Like imagine that we lowered our standards and as all college, not just at UCSD, but every college, Harvard, Princeton, they stopped requiring the SATs, right? So they all did this at once. But imagine that it was also done at the high school level, and it was also done at the elementary. I remember teaching my kids during COVID. It was horrible, like 4 different teachers and different subjects and in front of a screen. That's not the only reason, but it is a reason.
It's one thing if you don't know, okay, here's a circle, the diameter is this, what's the area of this circle? I'd understand if somebody didn't know or forgot how to calculate that stuff. Okay, that if you're not, that's not something you need to know every day. And yes, anybody who takes middle school geometry is going to know the answer trivially, but okay, not everybody knows or remembers. They're interested in something else. And I'm saying this, I'm being very nice in saying this. Like, presumably anybody who takes the SATs knows the answer to that question. But that one question, which they said the blank plus 6 equals 2 plus 7, that is very first. You could count on your fingers the answer for one thing, and so.
Yeah, no,
I don't understand. Like, what does it mean? How did they pass AP calculus or advanced
that's
calculus?
The thing. I think that there was probably massive grade inflation, massive just corruption, and don't forget like who is admitting. Who do you think like does admissions at Princeton or UCSD? Ever thought about that?
No, I mean I assume the admissions team.
Yeah, but who makes up the admissions? Is it like a panel of professors? Is it like an external, a committee of faculty and consultants? And
I guess I don't know. I assume people are hired just for admissions.
Yeah, there's a an administrative component of UCSD or any university that just does admission. Now, do you think they're professors? Do you think they have PhDs, any of them? Do you think they have any expertise in education? I mean, many of them don't have the qualifications of a guidance counselor. And yet they're responsible for the most, determinative decision in a 17, 18-year-old's life, up to that point. And so many of them don't, I wouldn't say many of them, they're not all astrophysicists and mathematicians, right? So there's a spectrum of what their accomplishments are, but they're working in like academia at some lower level than academia. Like they're working with high school kids. Like, so maybe they only need to have high school degrees. I don't know, but they're in charge of this most, kind of monumental decision process. And they, I don't know what expertise they have. I know for a fact, I've never been asked anything about undergraduate admissions as opposed to graduate admissions where it's only determined by faculty. So I think my graduate student performance, is uniformly, it's as good as anywhere else in the world. But the undergraduate is out of my control as a professor, which is completely insane. Like, again, of course, I'm not asking to be on the admissions committee, but I'm asking like, I should get like teaching relief. I should be not forced to, that's the most important thing to a professor is like, you can't teach, like teaching takes up, half my life, teaching, grading, planning, getting guest lecturers, getting demonstrations, experiments, lab stuff. So that takes up half my life. So if you want me to do another thing, like review a proposal, and I just remembered I'm in charge of this committee. I haven't even started it yet. You want me to do that? Like you have to either give me more money, which is impossible, because the university is a public university and they have no money and whatever, or you have to say like, look, we're going to get somebody else to take some of the teaching burden off of you so that you can do this other thing that we're telling you is so important. And I just find it, crazy that we have, so much to do, almost no time to do it. And we're expected to do more and more. And we have no, like, imagine you're hiring for a company, James, which is, the model I'm making up in academia. You're hiring for a company, which are my students, but I have no say in who I hire whatsoever. Like, I can't say this student is great.
I get what you're saying, but it doesn't even explain it to me. Like, again, if they passed calculus, that means they passed algebra. That means they passed geometry, maybe trigonometry.
Right.
They've had to get through so many math classes.
All the way to the bottom.
First off, this is basic algebra. This is like more basic. This is like algebra 0. So it does not make sense to me. Maybe corruption, but I don't even understand the point of that kind of corruption. Like nobody's getting paid off. No one's making extra money.
I would agree that it's suspicious or there's something weird, but it happens at all these schools, like all the UC schools. Even at like MIT, there's like a remedial math class. Now you're like, how could you possibly get into MIT and have remedial math? I mean,
Okay, but even remedial math, though, in a college level, doesn't explain this problem.
Well, what is remedial math at MIT? What do you think it involves?
Well, I think it's for people who, I always say there's a backdoor into MIT, which is if you're an 18 years old and you really want to get into MIT, apply to the theater department and you'll get in because no one else is applying for that at MIT. And so maybe then you need remedial math to keep up with MIT students. But then that means though, still algebra, you got A's in, you had to still get all A's, which because of grade inflation,
I'd like
most
to see
kids
what
have.
they actually teach at the remedial level at these other institutions. But look, this could all be done away with some standardized testing, right? I mean, you can't imagine that you could do, get above a 200 on the SATs and the math, 300 or whatever, if you don't know that simple algebra problem, right? So that would have eliminated it, but that was considered to be racist, and it was more important that they learn about social justice in 2020, 2021, and then they show their commitment to it. And that's why people like my nephew said, like, I believe all people are equal. That's considered like a microaggression here. And so it was probably disqualifying. So instead of like being, pandering to that level, we should have some standard. Now, the standardized tests, should the standardized test companies, ETS or whatever it is, have the power that they have. It should be part of a portfolio of evaluation. But these sophisticated people in the admissions department at all these universities, they should be able to weight things. It's not that complicated, and say, well, the SAT is important. But they also did this, provided, 1,000 mosquito nets to every person in a town in Rwanda or whatever. That's great. So maybe they did a little bit. But if they can't do basic math, then they have no business being at a top university like UCSD.
Again, it doesn't explain it to me because that is so out of context, like not being able to answer that question, and yet you're a student at UCSD, even in remedial math. And I saw people say, oh, well, UCSD, part of their admissions, because it's a public school, they have to accept, there is a little bit more. It's not, some of their admissions are not as strict as other of their admissions. I don't know the reasoning behind that, but so it could be the potential, the case that they have very low ranking students. But I still don't understand if there are people who have taken any math classes at all not answering that question. And they're saying 25% of remedial math was not able to answer that question. It just sounds ludicrous to me. I don't understand. And I'm not saying it's a shame that so many students don't know the answer to that question. I'm saying something seems wrong with the research they did. I don't believe the research they did. I was even going to post this exact thing on Twitter just to ask someone to explain to me, like, have you ever met anyone in your life who can't do that question?
Well, yeah, but not. But yes, there are probably some people that can't do that question. But are they in college or are they first graders or whatever, right? So,
have you ever met anybody at UCSD who you think can't answer that question?
No, but I don't teach. But I've met students that are incapable of doing basic calculus.
Yeah, I probably can't do basic calculus. I took calculus
but you're not
4
a
years.
Physics major. You're not a physics major in upper division class. Like they shouldn't be here either. And at that so it's true at all levels. I always say UCSD, probably has as many smart people as Harvard does, but we're also our incoming class is 8 times bigger than Harvard's. But the best of my students can compete with any student anywhere. There's just not as many, proportionally as there might be at MIT. Harvard, I'm not so sure about anymore. Harvard has really gone, to a dark place in many capacities. And I think, everything from Lawrence Summers, kind of Epstein, the Epstein connection. My friend Eric Weinstein's detailed all these weird things where he's, he knew about like quantum mechanical gate, theories of everything, like in the 1980s and 90s. And like, he's supposed to be some hedge fund manager, but no one could point to a single hedge fund that he ran. He was advising Lawrence Summers on dating strategies. And, up in like 2018 or allegedly, it's a crazy place. It's it's like, it could be viewed as a think tank plus a, lobbying firm plus like a secret government program. I mean, from the way that Eric describes things, and I've heard other people describe as well. And being there, it's, Harvard's like the gold standard, right? You say, oh, it's a Harvard, professor, Harvard study. A lot of people, are seeing emperors naked, basically.
Take a quick break. If you like this episode, I'd really, really appreciate it. It would mean so much to me. Please share it with your friends and subscribe to the podcast. Email me at altucher@gmail.com and tell me why you subscribed. Thanks. So I have started many companies. Some did well, some did not do as well. I've also run many companies. I've advised many companies, and I've been involved in all aspects of the hiring process, whether sometimes I would have to hire a CEO, but sometimes software developer, sometimes designer, sometimes head of sales or business development. I've been involved in basically every aspect of running a business, and hiring is maybe the most important thing you could do when you start a business. So I'm going to give you one piece of advice, and it's related to what I'm talking about here. I used to think I was frugal because I would try to find employees as cheaply as possible, someone young, just starting out, whatever. But what I've learned is you do so much better as a business finding the best person in your field. If you want a head of sales, find the best head of sales. If you want a software developer, hire the best software developer. It ultimately will save you money, but it'll also save you so much time, so much aggravation, so much anxiety. These are all things you need to preserve. It's really important to hire correctly. When you're running a business, your mind is on your business 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's the problem with being an entrepreneur, is you never leave the work at the office. So when you're hiring, you need a partner that works just as hard as you do. I have found that a great hiring partner is LinkedIn Jobs. When you clock out, LinkedIn clocks in. LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free, share it with your network, get qualified candidates that you can manage all in one place. And I find this is such a great platform to find people for your job, because millions of people are on LinkedIn, millions of qualified people. Here's how it works. You post your job. LinkedIn's new feature helps you write job descriptions and then quickly get your job in front of the right people. Post your job for free, or you pay to promote it. Promoted jobs get 3 times more qualified candidates. You get qualified candidates. At the end of the day, this is the most important thing to your business, is the quality of those candidates. Based on LinkedIn data, 72% of small and medium businesses using LinkedIn say that LinkedIn helps them find high quality candidates. So that's good information. You share with your network. So when you're on LinkedIn, your whole business network knows you're hiring. So find out now why more than 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring today. Find your next great hire on LinkedIn. You can post your job for free at linkedin.com/Altucher. That's linkedin.com/Altucher to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Look, as a manager of people, as an employer, as an entrepreneur, and as even an investor in startups, I can tell you the most important thing for your business is the quality of the people you hire. The best part is that great candidates are already on LinkedIn. Employees hired through LinkedIn are 30% more likely to stick around for at least a year compared to those hired through the leading competitor. And I will tell you that the great thing about LinkedIn is that you're not just looking at random people. You're able to see the people who your friends and trusted peers and colleagues, who they trust and who they've hired in the past and who they recommend. And hiring doesn't have to be complicated. Realistically, when you have a business to run, you don't want to spend hours on hiring. You want to hire the right person as quickly as possible. That's why LinkedIn Jobs AI Assistant suggests immediately 25 great fit candidates daily so you can invite them to apply and keep things moving. Hire right the first time. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/Altucher, then promote it to use LinkedIn Jobs' new AI Assistant, making it easier and faster to find the top candidates. That's linkedin.com/Altucher. Post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.
This message comes from Capital One. The Capital One Venture X Business Card has no preset spending limit, so the card's purchasing power can adapt to meet business needs. Plus, the card earns unlimited double miles on every purchase, so the more a business spends, the more miles earned. And when traveling, the Venture X Business Card grants access to over 1,000 airport lounges. The Venture X Business Card. What's in your wallet? Terms and conditions apply. Find out more at CapitalOne.com/VentureXBusiness.
What can 160 years of experience teach you about the future? When it comes to protecting what matters, Pacific Life provides life insurance, retirement income, and employee benefits for people and businesses building a more confident tomorrow. Strategies rooted in strength and backed by experience. Ask a financial professional how Pacific Life can help you today. Pacific Life Insurance Company, Omaha, Nebraska, and in New York. Pacific Life and Annuity, Phoenix, Arizona.
My stance in general is kids shouldn't go to college. As I get older, I understand why many parents want to send their children to college. I get it. I'm not really arguing this, even though I strongly feel this. Look, I even sent my kids to college. You can't say no to your daughters. So, I believe this, but I'm a hypocrite. So it's hard for me to fully argue. But look, yeah, people shouldn't send their kids to Harvard. And by the way, Harvard might be the one school where you can really make the argument, the connections I make are going to be worth it alone. That is the case. Now, okay, if I send my kid to UCSD for physics, they get to have Brian Keating as their professor. That's probably worth it too. And that's if they're really into education and changing the field of physics and so on. So there's reasons to go to college for specific professions and purposes. And there's reasons to go to Harvard just for the connections. But I agree, Harvard lately is just very, very disturbing place. All these Ivy League
I actually
schools.
don't know. Like a lot of my friends went to Harvard, Cornell. I went to Brown graduate school. But I also met really, high quality people, in high school. Like if you ever meet somebody like in your life when you're younger and you're like, I wish I could buy an option on this person, not just financially because they're going to be rich or whatever, but just like they're going to be successful. Like there was no doubt in high school, some of my friends would be super successful. And then in college, I went to Case Western. It wasn't like, an Ivy League school, but some of the people there that I met, I'm still friends with to this day and are super successful, like just top of their game. And the people I know from Harvard and Cornell, like they would have been successful anywhere. They would have made networks anywhere, but I don't even know, like the type of person that networks, it's like physics. I don't have like some network because I went to an Ivy League grad school.
No, but for physics, then for some professions, it's the quality of training and education. If your goal is to go to school to get rich, which you don't have to go to school for that, but if you do go for that purpose, then a place like Harvard, and if you really are good at networking, that's going to help you. It's gonna the money, the effort you put into networking at a place like Harvard.
Yeah,
is
I'm sure if you're in investment banking and you go to any of these places, it'll certainly be beneficial to you. But the allure has been gone, at least in my mind, from academia. Like I started keeping this thing in 2020, during BLM and just all the performative prostrations and land acknowledgements and crazy just like posturing in every virtuous signaling lexicon imaginable. And I started this like Apple Notes, just like university rot. And it's like 10 megabytes now. And it's all text, maybe a picture here or there. But everything from like Ivy League professor Cornell, feeling exhilarated when October 7th happened.
I know that. Yeah, I remember reading that too. I went to Cornell, so I know that.
Yeah.
Reading that as well about that professor, and it's really disturbing and upsetting. And look, we've focused a lot on October 7th, but there's no other event in history, I think, where girls were raped, grandparents were shot, and the videos put on,
babies were strangled. And
the videos were then put on people's Facebook pages so everyone can see what these.
Yeah, and you see it now, like Charlie Kirk. Where was Charlie Kirk killed?
Utah, some university there, I forget.
Yeah, Utah Valley University. So he's killed on a college campus. We had things on our college. We have this free speech zone. or anybody can go. And a couple days after Charlie Kirk was killed, there was a sign. It's like a free speech zone where anyone can go and put graffiti there, as long as it's not about like LGBTQ or African American. Like you can put anything about Israel as a genocidal state. You can put in, and then there was a sign that said "Kill all Nazis." And I was just like, well, do you think I'm a Nazi? Like, do you think Charlie Kirk was a Nazi? I'm sure a lot of people think he was a fascist, not that, ironically, the people they don't hate are the Nazis themselves. And so, they fancy themselves this kind of cohort, defending freedom and whatnot. But all these things happen at universities. Why is that? A lot of it, all politicians went to universities, all journalists went to universities, business people went to university. Very few people didn't go to university. So the university has this outsized impact. And I felt like you remember when we first started talking on podcasts in 2020, I was like, I don't know if the university is going to survive past COVID. And AI was just kind of coming into consciousness at that point in the consumer realm. And I remember thinking what's the future? I think I had what's Altucher University? Like, if you have a university, what's going to be in it, James? What do you mandate to teach? Chess? I mean, be thoughtful about it. What would you teach at a university you have complete control as the president of?
Yeah. So I think 90% would be motivated purely by what you're interested in and using AI to guide you and focus your curiosity, and the professor seeing what your, where your plateaus are, where your, what your questions are, what you're interested in, and the professor could guide and direct you according to your curiosity. But I also think the most important things that helped me in my career, that literally has made every success for me, is communication abilities. So ability to write well, speak well, think logically, steel man your arguments, the ability to negotiate, the ability, all of these communication skills are 100% the secret to success, as well as the psychology of entrepreneurship, money, these things that are never taught in college that are so important for success. But if I'm not curious about biology, but I take a biology class, I'm going to remember 0 afterwards. So there's no point. So you have to, it really has to be motivated by what you're interested in, what you're curious about. The great thing is, someone could be listening to this and say, oh, I don't know who Mamdani is. And then you use ChatGPT and did he really say, why would he say he's African-American on his college application? Did he really say globalize the infantata? And where did he say it? What's the context? What does that statement mean? Is it really true what James is saying about it's in the Hamas, founding charter? So now you can have your curiosity guide you. And the AI is much better than just Google for answering these questions.
How are you using AI? Because I heard your conversation with Ryan Holiday, and you guys focused on what AI is not good for, but and why humans are safer now, which I agree with. I fully agree that even in science, AI is completely underwhelming. I think we're on the verge of a huge bubble popping. Does Robin use AI every day?
I use AI 20 times a day. And
me too. But does Robin?
Yes, 100%.
Okay.
So for instance, right now there's a bunch of battleships and aircraft carriers and 15,000 troops surrounding Venezuela. So I don't really know anything about the Venezuelan political situation. So I asked, what spurred the reign of Chavez? When did, I didn't know anything. When did it start? How did he become the leader? And then Maduro, what was his background? What does he really believe in? What has he done, to the Venezuelan people? And then what companies, as an investor, what companies in the U.S. or how might the U.S. benefit if there's a regime change in Venezuela? So AI is really great for this, as opposed to taking my chances. Google gives me, here's 10 sites. So a lot of those sites are just bullshit sites, and I have to figure it out. AI is really good at giving me really great answers. And then if I'm curious, well, I don't understand, did Maduro really do social? What's the difference between socialism and fascism? Was Maduro a socialist or a fascist? And, AI is really good at taking, hundreds of sources and compiling it together into something. And then I can ask dumb questions because I don't know, a lot of people know this stuff like it's secondhand to them. I don't know anything. So I can ask dumb questions and not being afraid to ask. I'm just following my curiosity.
I don't know, I use it hundreds of times a day, probably. Everything from contracts, or I'm thinking of switching to a podcast network, and is that going to save time? And, so I can develop models
All
for
right,
stuff.
I'm looking at my AI history. So I'm seeing, okay, U.S. China tariffs. What have been the history of U.S. China tariffs? Now, I've written a lot about this. I've done a lot of research, but okay, just give me a timeline. Okay. Oh, and then I'll ask. Oh, in 2017, we put steel tariffs on. What was the result in jobs increase or decrease in the U.S.? What was the result of inflation? What was the result on the market? Okay, so that was one question. I have here. Tell me about. This is related to you. Tell me about the relationship between photonic computing and quantum computing. So that I asked AI rather than read myself a bunch of research papers I can't understand. I asked about New York City voter turnout in yesterday's election. That's how I learned that 30% of the Jews who voted for Mamdani. I asked about. I didn't know. Everyone's talking about vote for Prop 50 in California. I didn't know what Prop 50 was. So explain to me California Proposition 50. Oh, don't they realize this is against blah, blah, blah? Oh, but here's this Texas thing that they're comparing themselves to.
Right.
So, so everything I'm interested in, I'm asked, and then I know it. Now I know it. Like now I'm able to say, because I check the sources too, because the AI links to the sources, I'm able to say, 30% of these people voted for Mamdani. And now I know Proposition 50, and they've suspended their California Constitution for 2 years just because they want to get back at Texas for doing something similar to Prop 50. So now I know
it's so evil that they have to do it and do it hard. Even if Texas doesn't do it, they took out that provision.
Right. There's all this bullshit stuff, but then you find out. If I had just read about it, I could have.
Yeah. Do you even read the news? I mean, I don't read the news. I knew all this stuff. I knew all this stuff about New York City. I don't live in New York City. I knew about. You know about this stuff in California. You don't live in California.
And but it's interesting because the Venezuela thing, I did look on the news and I couldn't find anything. And yet we have 15,000 troops who have moved to be surrounding Venezuela. So for whatever reason, the news is not reporting on this. And yet it's probably the most important geopolitical thing happening for America, at least right now, because and I know this from AI, Maria, Machado, who won the Nobel Peace Prize a few months ago, has literally said to Trump, we've got $1.7 trillion in assets here. Come and get it. And so all this stuff I'm learning from AI, and I'm not ashamed to say it. Like I wouldn't have known it. I wouldn't have known where to look and so on. So
the thing is, like these people, like I asked my students on the first day of class, I said, you're allowed to use any resource you like, a human or silicon, for anything, including the homework solutions. I don't care how many, because it's like telling your daughter, it's okay if you, drink while you're in college, if you're 21, she's going to do it no matter what you say, but at least now if she overdrinks, she's going to come and tell you, right? So I said, but you won't be allowed to use anything on the exams. So there's 3 major exams that count for 50% of your grade, as well as the homework counts 50%. So yes, you could rely on it. And I said, just out of curiosity, how many of your professors allow you to use AI? And none of them raised their hand. I'm like, this is like child abuse, student abuse. I think it's so, we're not only crippling their ability to do research, and we're preventing them from competing in the real world once they graduate against people who are, but it wasn't just UCSD. I don't want you to think I'm dumping on UCSD. I love it. It's my, I couldn't be anywhere. Like I got an offer to go to an Ivy League school a couple of years back. I didn't even bring it to my chair. We have this stupid policy here that the only time they would give you a raise, if I wanted a raise, I basically have to tell them, I not only do I have a job offer from Cornell or Dartmouth or whatever, but here it is in writing. In other words, I have to go so far down the rabbit, which takes a long time in academia to get a job offer. First of all, they have to have a position, the money, the startup. It's millions of dollars of commitment. It's a lifetime appointment. For somebody like me. And so this takes 6 to 8 months of another university doing, and then by that time, there's so much sunk cost into it that you're going to leave. Like a lot of my friends who did leave UCSD, they went to Stanford and other places, they went through the process because they didn't nip it in the bud at UCSD. They could have kept the person if they didn't have this stupid policy. So we have a lot of stupid policy. One of my other favorite things is I cannot have an office as a professor that's bigger than the office of a state assembly member. That's actually part of the Constitution of the UC. It's so petty, and that actually is dates back to probably Ronald Reagan or something like that. But it's still in force, and they still do enforce it. So I went to Princeton, And I asked my good friends and colleagues there, they're like, no, we don't let them use AI. It's like cheating. They won't learn it the real way. I'm like, how do you know what the real way is? Like their minds are so adaptable and malleable. And you didn't know about AI when you were, like 8 years ago. And now you're telling them that they can't use it in their career, which can last the next 60 years. Like, that's really a lot of chutzpah.
Right now, I think there's an amazing kind of career arbitrage that can happen, which is the people who are using AI. And by the way, you don't need any expertise to use AI. You just need to open up ChatGPT or Grok or whatever you want and ask questions. The only skill you need is the ability to ask questions. And people who are using AI and not afraid to use it have a significant advantage over the people who don't use AI.
Absolutely.
Like I was in a debate a few weeks ago. It was a Bitcoin versus gold. I was on the Bitcoin side, obviously arguing for Bitcoin, and my opponent in this debate was arguing for gold. And it was on a stage in front of 1,000 people. And I heard in just conversation that this guy I was going to debate said Tether, the biggest stable coin, has never been audited. Okay, I didn't know that, and I didn't really know who to ask to confirm this. So I asked AI, and it gave me real details about the difference between an audit and what Tether does, which is basically the same thing. And I was able to understand the subtleties of what was going on. So I was able to address this if it had come up in the debate, which it didn't. And it took me 2 seconds. My knowledge of crypto, I'm a crypto expert in general, but I didn't know this one question. I knew that their assets had been confirmed, but I didn't know officially what was the official mechanism that they confirmed them. So that's why I asked the question. And so now I know the official mechanism. Now I can answer this question. And it wasn't much different than what I thought, but now I know specifically.
Now you
so
have to be careful. Yeah. But
I do research the source and see that it's accurate, because I don't want to be fooled by any AI hallucinations.
But that's part of the thing. That's part of the thing, James. You're doing the right thing. But that's part of the vitality and the urgency that we have to teach students how to use it right now. So, for example, I go to ChatGPT. I say, "What books has Brian Keating written?" Comes back, "Losing the Nobel Prize," "Into the Impossible," "Galileo's Dialogue," and "A Brief History of Time." And I'm like, oh, that's really nice, ChatGPT. I hope do I get like 1% of the revenue of the book sales, residual? No, I didn't write that. Stephen Hawking. So not only does it flatter you, it hallucinates, it's sycophantic. So I get an email a day now with a theory of everything. And the reason that I get so many, it's exploded since ChatGPT. And what happens is these people have these ideas, they're earnest, they're well-meaning, and they send me an email and they say, Professor Keating, I value you so much. You do such good work. Here's my theory of everything. I think it changes everything. I'm willing to have you as a collaborator. I won't share the Nobel Prize with you. But here's the deal. Just to prove to you that I'm right, ChatGPT's output, an evaluation and 600 different parameters. I literally had a guy I talked to. So what I started to do, James, is I have an auto reply on my phone. And when you write me with your theories of everything, that's great. I say, thank you for your email. Due to extreme, overload at work, I can only engage with you for $1,000 an hour for private consulting, or you can join my group chat once a month on YouTube. I host for $20 an hour, for $20 a month, which is a good deal compared to $1,000 an hour. And the $1,000 an hour goes to charity, a 501c3. Either the UCSD has a food pantry for students that can't afford food. Can you imagine, go to college, but you can't afford food? So there's a food pantry on campus. And then there's a Jewish organization called Chabad on campus. So, and I've had half dozen people. I made thousands of dollars for charity. I don't take it for myself. And that gets rid of about 90% of it. But I still have a lot of people, James, that are coming through. And it's all because, ChatGPT is telling them that they've solved everything from entropy, the arrow of time, dark matter, dark energy, and they have to get this to the world, and they're very earnest about it. But before, ChatGPT, if I had said something like that, no one would have put their money, because they wouldn't have had any confidence in it. Now it's giving them this like false bravado that they're the next Einstein. And, and the probability of that is, I always say to each one, because at the end of each hour, they always say, I want to talk to you longer. Let's keep going. And I'm like, well, I learned from my friend who's a psychotherapist, you always end at 50 minutes, not an hour, so that you can start wrapping up. And then, you say, my time is like this. And now I just send them, they say, nobody else is as smart as me. I say, oh yeah, well, here's 10 other people that wrote me this week. I took out their names. but here's what their theories of everything are. Here's the ChatGPT validation. And, how would you respond if you're me? Oh, well, I'm right. So I'm like, the next hour goes up to 2,000. And then it's just going to keep doubling and doubling. And if
That's
they want
funny.
to,
That's smart.
they want to pay $64,000 per hour, to donate to the food pantry, I'm here for it.
That's funny. So some people have paid, and
Yeah,
has anybody, I mean, obviously nobody's theory probably holds up to the math, but has anybody's theory even conceptually made sense?
It's hard to say. I mean, they're often extremely convoluted, and they all have a common theme, which is that they try to solve everything from, like I said, from dark matter, dark energy, entropy, the hour of time, the ontology of quantum mechanics, everything. And there's imagine Einstein, in 1905, Einstein published 4 separate papers. And I'm convinced, Brownian motion, the photoelectric effect, the theory of relativity, and one other that I'm blanking on, but it's embarrassing. But anyway, I'm convinced if he published all 4 at once, you wouldn't know his name. Because it's just too much.
Yeah.
Like proving the existence of molecules, describing a photon, talking about things moving relativistically, electrodynamics of, all these things that he did. Nobody would believe, you just couldn't take it seriously. And he was very smart. He didn't have ChatGPT, and he just broke it into easily, digestible, kind of corpuscles. And that was then magnified the response. And still he didn't win the Nobel Prize for 17 years. Because, people that invented the gas regulator for the lighthouse and buoys, that was just a much more important invention than the theory of relativity, as you know.
It's so fascinating, though. You're right. So AI is a tool, right? And you need some basic skills. So maybe I'm wrong when I say, oh, you just need to ask questions, because you're right. AI does want to please. Yeah, AI wants to please the user. So sometimes it says what you want to hear. That's why you do have to look at the sources, but AI will give you the sources, so it's easy to do.
But you have to check it. That's part of the process of using AI kind of responsibly. And that's what I teach my students, even my kids. My kids love it. They'll never know a world that AI didn't exist in. And now, do I think it's going to be, contribute? I read somewhere that, the imputed value of AI in the world economy is at least $5 trillion. I mean, NVIDIA's worth $5 trillion, right? So it has to be more than that. Let's say you put a multiple on that of 10x. It has to be at least, Apple contributes more than 2 trillion to the world economy over its lifetime, right? It's probably close to 10 or 20 trillion because of all the things it enables and apps. But in other words, how much does AI contribute to GDP in billions or trillions of dollars right now?
Right now, I think it's hard to say, but let's say over the next 5 years, it'll probably be $30 to $50 trillion.
So I wonder how you get that valuation, because
you just look at everybody, Apple's committed to spending $600 billion, Nvidia's committed to spending $600 billion. All this is on data centers and AI compute and inference. TSM is building factories here. By the way, then you have every company, let's say in the Fortune 500, is going to be 10% profitable.
I think that's more than the internet. I think that's more than the internet is contributing.
Yeah, the AI is going to be, AI is definitely going to be bigger for society.
But how is that? I mean, do you feel like you have a bias, and because you have a survivorship bias, how it works, you use it effectively, its limitations, its, fallacies.
That might be, but 10 minutes before this podcast.
My student doesn't know. Even a top student, they don't know how to use it. A junior in college at a top university in the world, they have no idea how to use it or what it's for, and how there's so many different kinds of it. And well, I didn't tell you the answer. So this comes from Aswath Damodaran, who's a famous professor at NYU. Although, like Scott Galloway, your friend Scott Galloway, who ghosted me many years ago, saying
I have his book right in front of me.
Did not come on the show. Is he coming on your show?
Well, he's come on 7 times before. Jay, has Scott Galloway responded to you?
I think he's too big for his
on notes on being a man.
Somehow these guys, are teachers, but they don't live in the city where they teach. Anyway, so he says something like the amount of current actual revenue is under $50 billion. In other words, it's 100x.
But okay, but that's he's just looking. I don't really think of AI as just ChatGPT and Grok and all that.
Just blow up. He took everything. He took DeepSeek. He took and
no, but did he take Tyson Foods tractors? because some percentage of that now, they use AI to more efficiently spray pesticides, and they have self-driving tractors.
Sure,
So
but
like
that's going to reduce the tractor inspector. It's going to take some GDP away as well, right? Because the tractor inspector, or like look at lawyers. Let's say every lawyer is replaced by ChatGPT. Is that
no, but
net positive for GDP, or is that
yes,
negative?
it's going to be a net positive because
But by 100x, I don't know.
no, but it might be, it's a net positive. And like take the farmer who used to ride the tractor and buy more pesticide. Now he's got more money and more time. And what will he do with that money and time? Well, he's an entrepreneurial person. He's got his farm that he harvests and sells the products and so on. So he's going to use his time and money more efficiently, and he's going to be probably a better allocator of that money and time than he would have been otherwise. So he'll start other businesses or buy other things that allow other people to start other businesses. Ultimately, we don't know the net result of this sort of economic velocity, but it will be a net positive. I'm
I look
sure
at like kiosks at McDonald's or something like that. Not that I go there, but like it's taken away. I actually don't go to McDonald's, but it's taken away. I go to a healthy place like Dunkin' Donuts, as you see my coffee cup over here. It's taken away a lot of entry level jobs and stuff like that, right? So in that sense, like was it net accretive or not? It saved money for McDonald's, but so anyway, there's two different things. It can either save money, reduce, kind of expenditures, costs, and payroll and stuff like that, which is, I agree that benefits, but you can't cut your way to profit. Like if you don't have a profit, you can't have a bigger profit if you just keep reducing your expenses to zero. So then it has to leverage things. I just think, I tend to be biased by something when I like a product or whatever. It's very different than it's like
yes,
an add-on, and it's not like we haven't had it. We've had chatbots, we've had AI assistants. Remember the Microsoft paperclip? We've had things that help us for a long time, and these are markedly better. But like, are you deploying agents to do coding project? And like, how many coding projects do you have? Like, I have one or two. Like, again, we are unusual because I can analyze data, but like my neighbor who does like insurance adjustments, and stuff like that. Again, he might be able to like model something that he couldn't do before, but is that 100x what the CapEx is currently? Anyway, I know it's not what you want.
We don't know. But look, this is an area that I am very familiar with, and so I need an AI assistant to keep reminding me of all the conversations around me.
I have this pendant that records everything that I say. I forgot to put it on today. That's the other problem.
But I just had a podcast right before this one where I was talking to these two guys who had created a company to do special effects using AI, do special effects on Hollywood movies. And that, each scene now costs 1/10 the price. So you're talking about instead of having $100 million budget for visual effects, you could have a $10 million budget now to make the same movie. So across all the movies, okay, it doesn't add up to trillions of dollars, but every industry now is using AI to improve profits. So you can, like a movie that would have been unprofitable can now be profitable because they reduce expenses using AI. And that does become a net positive because it does mean the studio can make more movies, hire more actors, hire more crew. And again, I'm not saying trillions. You have to kind of add up lots of small things to get to the trillions. But I think that is happening across every industry where money's being saved, and that means it's being more efficiently allocated towards new projects, hiring new employees. So 70% of the companies in the Fortune 500 have filled out a survey and said, yes, we're using AI. But only 4% of those companies have said, oh, this has led to firing employees. So we haven't really seen the mass layoffs yet. We see the headlines of mass layoffs. We haven't seen countrywide mass layoffs.
Like how do you justify, NVIDIA being worth more than all the European stock markets put together? And then if that and then let's say you took out one of their customer, like ChatGPT, like that could be the pinprick that pops everything, right? I mean, because yes, they're gonna. I mean, again, it's not like a consumer thing. Like we don't buy the Hopper chips; we pay for tokens, and then what if that goes to zero? Like the Chinese flooded the market with solar panels in 2000. I remember solar panels was a hot new thing. In 2005, 2006, America was going to dominate and be great. And now there's not a single company in America that makes them. China barely makes a profit, but they make quality products. And, but they, now that market's totally gone. With DeepSeek costs 10 times less to train and to run per million tokens than Claude does or ChatGPT.
100% I agree with you about DeepSeek. I think decentralized open source general purpose inference like a ChatGPT is much better done in the long run by a decentralized open source platform like DeepSeek. So I think that any one industry, yes, I agree with you. OpenAI is probably overvalued. Who knows? I don't know. But it's certainly, up against some strong competitors that are 1/100th the price, like DeepSeek or Mistral. There's plenty of open source, decentralized AI competitors to OpenAI. So we don't know the answer there. And on NVIDIA, I agree with you. That might be overvalued not because they're going to run out of the need for GPUs. Some other company might come up with something better than GPUs. And that's the risk you take when you're an investor in NVIDIA, because the demand is still there.
The holidays are here, and that means it's the most wonderful time of the year to save with Rakuten. Use Rakuten to stack cash back at your favorite stores on top of holiday sales. That's savings on savings. With Rakuten, you get cash back on gifts for everyone on your list. From toys for the kids, to kitchen gear for the person who loves to cook, to electronics for everyone. You can even save on something for yourself. Just shop the stores you love and cash back is automatically added to your account. And you can get paid with gift cards, PayPal, or check. Or eligible American Express card members can even choose to earn membership rewards points instead of cash back. It's truly a no-brainer. Join for free today and get a new member bonus after minimum qualifying purchases. Just go to Rakuten.com, download the app, or install the browser extension. That's RAKUTEN. Terms and conditions apply.
With so many options, why choose Arizona State University?
For me, the only online option was ASU because of the quality. Their faculty was really involved with their students and care about your personal journey. The dedication to my personal development from my professors, that's been extremely valuable to me.
Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Explore more than 350 plus undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
This is what I've been waiting for. Look, I've done 1,500 podcasts, a ton of podcasts about health and particularly anti-aging. I've had on every anti-aging expert on the planet. And finally, gummy bears to help me with anti-aging. These are the first ever longevity gummies powered by MitoPure, a delicious, easy way to put more energy into your day and to treat yourself. The only clinically proven urolithin A gummy for strength and healthy aging from the inside out. And I've taken it as supplements, but I'm not really a supplement taker kind of person. I'd much rather just take a bunch of gummy bears and eat it like candy. You can't really tell how much it's working, and sometimes you don't know for sure. Is it just, are you thinking this? But it does improve energy. Tests showed it increases muscle strength by up to 12% after 16 weeks. These gummy bears deliver 6x more urolithin A than a glass of pomegranate juice, which, by the way, I was taking a ton of pomegranates as well. So this is the #1 doctor-recommended urolithin A supplement. It's vegan, gluten-free, non-GMO, Clean Label Project certified, NSF content certified, and free of major allergens and artificial ingredients. MitoPure is the only clinically proven form of urolithin A. So if you want to stay strong and energized now and as you age, then you have to try MitoPure gummies. My friends at Timeline are offering 20% off just for my listeners. So head to timeline.com/Altucher to get started. That's timeline.com/Altucher. Your cells will thank you. You mentioned about AI coding. Well, Google and Microsoft have laid off thousands of programmers because they're using AI coding. And Cursor, which is the leader in the space right now, they are the fastest company in history to get to $1 billion in revenues. And they're AI coding. And their code is not perfect. You need programmers to go over it, but it reduces the time. For a good Google programmer, it reduces their time and the amount of manpower and man hours needed to make a program by 90%. So it is valuable. And again, that's built on top of the Anthropic platform and Claude, Cursor is. So there's going to be these niche companies that get to $1 billion in revenues super fast. That means, if they get to $1 billion in revenues, it's super fast like that, they're probably worth, I think actually Cursor's valuation in the last fundraising was about 30 billion, which actually makes some sense because they're still growing at that rate. And, that's where you start to build all this value, is that the time to build things and the efficiency using AI is really great.
No, yeah, believe me, I know, but I just feel like the user base, how many millions of people are going to use it? Yes, Cursor and those things are very good, but it's also like quantum computing, which we eventually we'll talk about, maybe not even today because I have to teach quantum mechanics soon. But the quantum mechanical computers are extremely useful at discovering and optimizing the properties of quantum computers. Like they don't have tremendous, like there's no AI, quantum computing, a secret killer app yet. Now there are certain things that they're very good at. And then the most famous one is like encryption, decryption, and so forth. But that might have like a really negative externality in that like it could compromise, like encryption schemes, including those used in Tensor and Bitcoin and other things. Like we get into that at some point. Why is that the case? How does that work? Yeah.
But like, okay, I agree. And it feels almost like a similar bubble when you look at stock market valuations or private company valuations. But here's the one big difference. Quantum computers have zero legitimate users. Now there are research users and there are users who are trying to build better quantum computers, but there are zero users at the current moment other than research and kind of academic.
Whereas wasn't AI the case.
AI has 2 billion users just using like ChatGPT and competitors to ChatGPT, not counting the tractors spraying pesticides and all that kind of stuff using AI. So just 2 billion users on these general inference platforms. That's a real difference.
I got to see your tractor. I mean, you keep talking about your tractor. Right? You're a chicken farmer down there? What are you doing down there? KFC?
No, I need like AI to make the pickleball lines on my tennis court. So
yeah, that's a number one use case. I think that's how NVIDIA is going to stay in business. Now I'm not worried about my position, my one share of NVIDIA. I have this friend who like, he's like this complete genius, like programmer, and just like he's got this whole idea for new types of AI that's like different from diffusion. It's like diffusion plus like branch and network theory, like graph theory, like Stephen Wolfram works on and stuff like that. It's this revolutionary thing. He told me to buy NVIDIA in like 2019, and he's like almost broke. I'm just like, this guy, literally if he bought like 100 shares, when it was like $1,000, that would have been $1,000. Like he could have been, I don't know how much, but we could ask AI, but like he'd be like well off. And now he's totally, like I feel bad for the guy. And I'm like, I didn't really take your advice, but that's sometimes the problem with it. Yeah. I mean, these things have such abilities we impute to them, these like almost mythical, magical powers, including the power of the economy and over science and physics. And that's why people have this misplaced trust, in my opinion, that their theories of everything are correct because they're vetted by, Gemini or whatever. But Gemini in the hands of a professional physicist is an extremely unusual, powerful tool.
Yeah. Cause I would say that, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'll ask you the question. Like, I would say the difference between the guy pitching you the theory of everything and someone like you using ChatGPT is you won't ask leading questions. So if I ask to ChatGPT, hey, if I, assume gravitons are influenced by gravity, does that make a theory of everything? And if ChatGPT is going to say, yes, that's very astute. Like if you do this, so ChatGPT is going to like try to agree with me. Whereas you'll ask meaningful questions to give you more information so you can come to a conclusion. You won't ask leading questions. You'll ask information-oriented questions. And I think that's a big difference in terms of how to use ChatGPT correctly.
Yeah. No, and it is. And that is a huge form of leverage, which is, again, why I don't think that it should be really reconsidered by my colleagues and even like my fellow parents. One of my daughters is interested in making a song using Sona or whatever they.
Yeah, Sona.
Yeah. So she's doing it, and she's like, "Oh, make a song, with like Taylor Swift singing about my friend, Brittany and my friend Kaylee and Layla and whatever. And then they're going to, try to get me at recess and hit me with a dodgeball or whatever. And it comes like, I'm sorry, Orly, I can't get back to you on this. And we can't, sweetie, we can't deal with this because it violates copyright. Like not only is her name trademarked, but like even her style, like Taylor Swift's style is trademarked. And that was like kind of revelation. But then she said, oh, okay, well, how do I get around it? So she asked ChatGPT, well, like, what are like basically like synonyms to describe Taylor Swift's voice perfectly to an LLM that isn't allowed to use. I helped her a little bit, but isn't allowed to. And it came back and it was perfect. So what did she learn? She learned how to prompt. She learned that prompt engineering, so to speak, which is an important skill. And she learned that, as a kid. And now, that's a lesson that she's not going to forget. And now she knows she can't do certain things. There's guardrails on it. She learned a tremendous amount. And I feel
by the way, then she also learned Taylor Swift's style and maybe some music theory around Taylor Swift's, what makes a pop song.
Right.
And that's incredibly valuable. Taylor Swift is one of the best-selling artists of all time. So it's kind of incredibly valuable that she wouldn't have learned.
I read, I wrote just in my Monday Magic mailing list where you can get it, briankeating.com. /mail or list. And I wrote about this new site that I found called book.sv. And all it does is give recommendations. I said, do you ever read a book, James, that you kind of wish you didn't read it because then you'd be able to read it for the first time? Like, I know you were like that with losing the Nobel Prize, but so it gives you recommendations of similar books. It's pure AI. So
I love that.
Recently, I typed in, and you could put that in the show notes, James, or first put in my mailing list, Jay, and then put in book.sv. It's a great little thing. So I put in, of course, my books, but then I put in choose yourself, be happy, make millions, live the dream. So what do you think are some comparable books, similar books to choose yourself, besides the choose yourself guide to wealth?
Okay, maybe Seth Godin's books it would recommend. Maybe something like The 4-Hour Work Week it would recommend.
Yeah, it's got that. But here were some other ones that I didn't think about at first, but then I read it and I was like, yeah, you're absolutely right. Turning Pro, Stephen Pressfield.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Scott Adams, How to Fail at Almost Everything and Still Win Big.
Yeah.
But these are books and then Gary Vaynerchuk, Jab, 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 Right Hook. So that's like, at first I thought, well, it's just looking at the title, but then it has Josh Waitzkin, The Art of Learning.
No, and these are all books that I've read pretty heavily, either before or after reading Choose Yourself.
People. Yeah,
I've interviewed
Mastery.
Mastery by Robert Greene. So yeah, all of these things were actually
one of Seth's books is most similar to your book, according to book.sv.
I mean, I think he actually had a book called Pick Yourself, but
really?
yeah, or there was a book I felt like that, but maybe Purple Cow. I would have to think about.
Icarus Deception. How high will you fly?
Yes, that one cool? That came out a little bit before Choose Yourself, and I felt it was like a similar theme.
Isn't that cool? So that's a great application of, and so just that feeling, there must be some Japanese word for that feeling of regret after you finish something you like, like it's almost like you finished eating at this 3-star Michelin restaurant and now you can't eat anymore. You're like stuffed.
I just put in my favorite collection of short stories and I asked for recommendations. Every single recommendation I've read and loved.
That's amazing. Okay, choose yourself guide to wealth. So this is a little bit more popular. Well, now there's Reinvent Yourself, Choose Yourself, The Rich Employee. Let's see.
Yeah, I had a whole series.
Yeah, let's see what's one that's not. Actually, this one should have been Kamal Ravikant's book. I think that should have been. That should have been more similar to Choose Yourself, but they have it
only because I wrote. I think I wrote. Did I write the foreword to that? I forget. I don't think I did.
Mm-hmm.
No, I just recommended it. So
yeah, some of these are not. I haven't read that book, your book, The Wealth Guide, but I've read the other one.
It's the same as Choose Yourself. Don't read that one.
Okay, yeah. So save money, and then the other one is Reinvent Yourself. Let me just see that one.
Oh, Skip the Line. Skip the Line.
Yeah, I read that. Obviously, I hosted you,
yes.
But I'm just trying to see any ones that are like really like that it resonate in that sense, like the sense I had when I was done. Yeah, Tribe of Mentors, Tim Ferriss. Yeah, so it's an interesting site. So those are great things that like kind of distill the DNA of something. But I'm worried about writing. Like I'm glad that that ChatGPT really came out after my first books were, after I had done a lot of, because it's very tempting to use it. Like I use it for writing. Like I write letters of recommendation. I basically, kind of just brainstorm in this AI voice mode. And then I have like a boilerplate thing in Claude as a project. I just say like, make sure you interview the candidate, that you're writing for. You meet with him or her. Like, and I just say like, if you were writing a recommendation, what would you want me to? Because they've been working for me for 6 years. Like, I don't remember everything they did in 2019. So like, tell me everything you're proud of. Like, you're writing for your mother is writing this thing for you, and then I'm going to make it professional. I'm going to add it, but I used AI to like distill what they say, because they're not maybe as good a writer as I am, or they just put it like a CV, like bullet points. Like I'm not going to cut and paste that, but then I can convert it and add in my special sauce and spices. I actually have you done any like James bots? I mean, you must have.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
And how did you do that? Because I saw this really good guy, Matt Wolf. He lives in San Diego actually. And he has this great like tutorial on how to take every single interview you've ever done on YouTube, at least. I don't know how you do it for the audio only ones, but all your YouTube ones.
I've done all my articles and a bunch of my books.
And what about your podcast?
No, I haven't done that. I haven't done that.
So what did you put in? Like, what tools did you use? Let's make this actionable for the audience.
I actually don't know, because someone else did it for me. So, but one thing I will say is that if I say, okay, now write in the style of James Altucher, I can see what it's doing. Like, I do think I have, for better or for worse, a particular style. And I could see what it's doing and how it's trying to do it, but it's not working. It's failing. And I don't think AI could replace us as writers. And of course I could be biased because, I'm a writer, but the problem is over 50% of content now being written on the internet is written by AI. It's about 52% last month. So now, and AI always only learns from the latest things going on the internet. So it's only learning about writing now from its own writing. So it's kind of hitting
I call
a
it
plateau.
mad bot disease. Remember mad cow disease?
Yeah.
Like where cows would eat other cows and then they get this brain disease. So I call it mad bot disease. Yeah, it's exactly right. And that's why there's no chance as LLM, maybe AI will, but there's no chance an LLM plus GPU based architecture will create a theory of everything. I'm going on record right now. You heard it's not going to come up. It can't do it because we haven't done it before. And the only new things that are coming into it are going to be either new physical laws, new physics discoveries from humans, or it's going to be like, oh, here's the transcript from the Fast and the Furious 11. Like, is that what's missing from our current understanding of physics? Is that the corpus of knowledge and tokens doesn't include the Fast and the Furious 11? No, it has nothing to do with that, right?
No,
so
you're absolutely right. Like for writing, for instance, okay, there's only so many good writers. Like there's only so many Hemingways in the world. So even statistically, you can't analyze. There isn't enough data to give you examples of good writing. Plus, it's very hard it's even hard subjectively, let alone objectively, to determine good writing. So it's never really going to learn to be a good writer. But video is a different story. So there's 1 million hours a minute being uploaded to YouTube for videos. So there's so much more data on what makes a video look like a real video. Every minute, there's another 1 million hours worth of real videos being uploaded. So the data is there. The data for good writing is not there. The data for a theory of everything is not there. So you have to understand how AI works. It's dependent on good and marked data. And sometimes it's able to mark the data.
Yeah. Well, this kind of connects back to what I said in the beginning. Like my rubric for picking a good politician is like the most liberal person in a red state or something like that, right? But what's like the dumbest take of a smart person? Like I think Elon Musk, very bright, very high agency, very competent. But I think he or Sam Altman, like they really believe that AGI is going to be here. And that's going to fundamentally do things like create a theory of everything. I mean, they've said such. Like it's just like a matter of time. And I understand they have quite an investment with both a chemical rocket company plus a AI company plus a social media platform. So I understand his incentives. But what do you attribute that to? I mean, it's such a simple proposition. Like nobody who's knows anything about math. Or like I interviewed Terrence Tao, who's like IQ is like 260 or something, reportedly. Smartest man. He won the Fields Medal. He is just this wonderkind. He's brilliant. He actually like graduated from college, I think at 19, and then he went to Princeton at 21. He got his PhD. He's like, man, no, they don't even have things that can, like, literally, James, you can't even check like Andrew Weil's proof of Fermat's last theorem. Like, it doesn't know how to do that. Like, you have to basically, these are very optimized, only do things like prove math expressions are true or false. And it can't reproduce something that was done 30 years ago by a human. So either that gives you a lot of, now I believe that it can beat us in chess. I always say, like, they'll never beat us in tic-tac-toe, James. They will never take our tic-tac-toe crown away from human beings. I think it's impossible. Like, I'm joking. I mean, tic-tac-toe.
I of course worked on everything, chess software and game software. And I remember going to, when I was in grad school, I went to Kai-Fu Lee, who later on basically invented speech recognition at Apple, then became one of the biggest investors in China. But Kai-Fu Lee was a professor at the time of computer speech recognition in 1989 at the grad school I went to. And I said, let's work on Go, because I knew he was interested in Go. And he had created the best Othello program using AI. And he said, no, Go is too hard. They're never going to solve it. And yet now Go is solved. It seemed like an impossible problem, and it's solved because there was data.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So those are algorithmic things, but where there's no algorithm, like, would you ever say like the AI sculpture, like this robotic sculpture, and it's going to do something that is as evocative as like Michelangelo or the Mona Lisa or whatever. Like, yes, it can make incredible art and even music. And in I read somewhere that the top 10 on Billboard is like half AI in certain categories, like, which is pretty crazy. But then people, when they're asked about it, do you want an AI thing? You remember this thing, like, you must remember, because I think you talked about it first, as far as I remember, like the uncanny valley. You remember that?
Yeah.
Nobody talks about that anymore. We just went like nobody says like, oh, these AI girlfriends, like, they don't really look identical to like Scarlett Johansson or Robin or my wife. Like, no, they look perfect. They're exactly, you can replicate people's exact images, but people, do they prefer it? And so I'm worried about writing. I mean, I've seen like a massive decrease, even on like YouTube. Like, you take some of the most popular YouTubers, and except for the very top, like Joe Rogan or Stephen Bartlett or whoever, like, they're getting way fewer views. And why is that? Like, what happened in the last year? I mean, the only explanation is that there's just so much explosion of other content, and some of it's AI, but, in terms of writing, like, are people sitting down? Like, I haven't read a physical book like in a long time, and I read a lot. Like, I listen to audiobooks, 2x speed for my podcast. I read a lot of nonfiction. So I read more than 99% of the population. I think I'm unusual, and then I have a podcast and I do research. And so, I mean, I'm worried about, like, I'm thinking about writing a traditionally published book, about Jim Simons but from his scientific accomplishments, not like, his financial.
I would totally read that.
Yeah, and there's so many more insights, because if you asked Jim, who is he? Would he say, I'm a hedge fund manager? Like, no, he was a scientist. His whole life was based on his scientific curiosity. So I think the financial thing, of course, gets the headlines because it's titillating, but no, that wasn't his core identity. And so, and I knew him, as well as, anyone outside of his family, I would say. And I think, like, that's the story that needs to be told. But, like, who's going to read that? You would read it because you're my friend, and you're
I would read it. I read it also because I'm fascinated by Jim Simons. So yes, I would read it because of you, and I would read it because of. So you're going to get niche audiences, like AI right. And the internet in general has encouraged niche subcultures, and that's what you're going to appeal to. You might appeal to a general
publishers
audience.
Don't want. They hear niche and they're like, screw that. I'm not getting into a niche. Like, they can do niche all by themselves. Like,
but that's why I would not do a traditionally published book.
Are you ever going to do another one?
I don't know. I got the last traditionally published book I did was Skip the Line, and I got a great advance, and it was nice to have a really great editor. But overall, I enjoy my experience of self-publishing more. I have total control. I make 100% of the profit on the book. I could design a book cover just as well as any editor, because I could hire a book designer, and I could get just as good. I could get better marketing because I can also control the price depending on the marketing campaign. So I don't really see the benefit other than advance and prestige.
I'm not thinking, a book about, 5-dimensional topology is going to, be a huge, runaway Wall Street bestseller. But in terms of, and maybe it will because Jim Simon's, involved. But what do you see as the trade-offs? Like, if I just said, I don't care about the money, the advance or whatever, but I want like the full firepower of a publisher, like what does that involve?
What is the full firepower?
That's what I'm asking you.
Okay. The only firepower with just basic self-publishing compared to traditional publishing, the only firepower traditional publishing has is they can get it into Barnes & Noble. That is the only firepower they have. I say Barnes & Noble in quotes, they get into other bookstores. But, they're not going to get it into Walmart books. They're not going to get into Target books because you have to write like a romance novel or a thriller or whatever. So Jim Simon's book is not going to get into Walmart. It'll get into Barnes & Noble in the major cities. And then if it does well in the major city Barnes & Nobles, then it could get into the other cities. But there's I would say self-publishing has more firepower. And by the way, the statistical evidence is there. So on average, a self-published book has a higher star rating on Amazon, meaning it's readers like it better than on average than an average traditionally published book. And it has on average higher rank on Amazon than traditionally published books, meaning they sell more copies if you're self-published. I don't know why that is. It could be because the gatekeepers are just not that good at the traditional publishers. So, so there's no real firepower that traditional publishing gets you other than the fact that, oh, yes, my agent got me Simon & Schuster and, the advance was published in Publishers Weekly. And now you can't get me on the New York Times bestseller list if you were self-published. So, that's
like, so why does Steven Pinker not self-publish?
I think my guess is if I were to estimate, he probably gets about $1 million advance per book, and he's writing a book a year. So that's a decent addition to his Harvard academic salary. And I'm just guessing at this. And then he doesn't have to hire
books. He would make it up in the book sales, right?
But he's probably not going to sell that many books. Like he is kind of like a marquee name for them. And, they don't really make the money on those authors. The publishers make the money on their backlist, but they stay relevant by having, Steven Pinker as our latest author. And, we got him on the Today Show, which by the way, doesn't really sell any books, but they can kind of then when they're pitching like Stephen King's next book, they're like, oh yeah, we just had Steven Pinker, and we'd love to have you. So, but I think it's a dying business model. And for Steven Pinker, he doesn't want to hire a book designer. And, I'm a little more entrepreneurial, not that he isn't, but I'm a little more entrepreneurial and I will get a great book designer. I'll figure out how to play with the pricing, and I know email lists and podcasts and so on. Like I don't need a PR firm. His book publisher will hire a PR firm for him and so on. So, but did Choose Yourself sell more copies than whatever his latest book is? Probably. So, and that was self-published. And Skip the Line, which was traditionally published, and I got, a good advance, did not make back the advance.
I do worry about the self-published. For one thing, having an editor, is if you have a good editor, I think that's extremely powerful. Like I'm very close to my copy editor, Allegra Houston. She's amazing, and she does a lot. And I was very close to my original acquiring editor, and then he quit Norton and went off on his own because it was a horrible job. I'm sure, at that pay rate, and his office was like a janitor's closet somewhere. But having someone to bounce ideas off of that has a, kind of a financial stake in things. If you hire somebody, you could say, well, first of all, it's pretty hard to, find a group of people that are as good at copy editing. Now, maybe I could hire them again, but bouncing ideas off of, that was very valuable.
You're totally
like AI.
right.
I could have AI be my editor, but I think it'll be horrible.
So I think you're right. Like I've had great editors at traditional publishers, but okay, Choose Yourself. I will tell you the team of people I had helping me with edit and marketing and design. First, I had this guy, Niels Parker. You might not know him, but he was Tucker Max's editor on all of Tucker Max's books, which were all Tucker Max and Malcolm Gladwell are like the two people who've had, 3 books at the same time on the New York Times bestseller list. So
yeah, I know you introduced me to Tucker. So
Niels Parker is a great editor and writer. Then I had 2 other people helping me with marketing, design, the thinking of it, the editing of it. I had the young Ryan Holiday pre all his Stoicism books, and he was a marketer then. And I hired him, and Tucker Max. So that was my group of people to bounce ideas off of. So I had a real professional team that I made up of, between Tucker and Ryan now, there's like 20 million copies of their books. So this was like a really super professional team. And I was very fortunate in that. But
I'm just thinking like someone like Basic Books who does a lot of science stuff, or Norton who does science. Having that, as an independent person who's going to read the book and not kiss my butt. And in the scientific realm, what I've heard from my agent, is like people don't really care about whether or not a theory is true. Like they just want to hear it. Like they hear, black holes destroy information, or quantum computers are going to revolutionize, our world, or, we go to Mars and it's going to change everything for preservation of human life, or there are aliens, throughout the galaxy and the universe. Like none of those are provable statements. In fact, some of them are demonstrably false. And the biggest one is like quantum gravity and the theory of everything, will change, completely change the roadmap for civilization, like the invention of fire and all these other, and so they like things like string theory because it's false, it's unfalsifiable. In other words, these authors are like, Stephen Hawking was famous for this. Like he wrote total nonsense, BS. I know I wrote his book, A Brief History of Time, but nevertheless, there's so much nonsense in that book. He talks about string theory, and it's like less reputable cousin called M theory, which, none
I never even heard of that.
Yeah, no. So it's all in, but most people, 90% of the people didn't read it. I once was at a talk that when he could still talk or respond in near real time, and someone said, "Why'd you write A Brief History of Time? It's rumored that nobody who buys it reads it." And he replied, "Well, it's only important that they buy it." It's like my daughter I needed to pay for private school for my daughter. He literally told me that. Told us that. But people like that. It's almost like this hero where like you just want to know that there's some like SEAL Team 6 of intellectual, physicists out there. But you don't need to know how they do the wet work that they do, in Venezuela or wherever they're going to be. You just need to know that they're there. Like remember, like A Few Good Men, Jack Nicholson. You want them on that wall. You need them on that wall. Like we need these Nobel Prize winners, even though we have no freaking clue what they do. Most people. Because it's sort of like a CV enhancer for the human race. And I just feel like, I know how to write a book like Brian Greene and, The Fabric of Reality, space, or the kind of just the breathless tones about string theory. I know how to do that, but I don't want to do that. Like, I'd rather do something that's true to like experimental. The ironic thing is that Jim Simons worked on a scientific theory, which not only could be a theory of everything, but it also, is verifiable and in some cases verified. In other words, there have been Nobel Prizes given for predictions that stem from his mathematics. He didn't predict the physical applications of it. And some of them relate to quantum computers, which we have to talk about, but not today because I got to go teach like right now. But let's catch up again soon, and I'll try to get on topic about the moon landing denial.
The entire purpose of this podcast was to talk about Candace Owens and denying the moon landing, and we will just have to reschedule that for next few days or weeks or whatever.
Yeah,
it's always going to be a hot topic, so we'll be able to talk about it soon.
It's the computing of the future. It always will be, and the moon landing is always going to be denied. Like anything, like the Epstein files. People are like, "Oh, the Epstein files are going to come out. It's going to change everything." I'm like, do you think they're going to reveal everything, James? Like, not even like just is it possible? Like, how many gigabytes of data is that? And even LLMs, like a lot of limitations of the LLMs, they can't go through a context more than like 100 emails or something before they just like forget what they're doing.
Let me ask a slightly different question, which maybe answers this question, which is, have they ever released anything about anything.
Right.
Where's the JFK stuff? Where's the UFO stuff? Where's
Right.
the MLK stuff?
Oh, that's coming
Like,
this week, the UFO stuff.
well, I just had someone talk about UFOs, and it's like, oh no, they're threatened with death. But he didn't quite say that. I'm not making fun of that guy.
A lot of them do claim that, James. They claim they're going to be, detained, and that they're whistleblowers. And then, why do you need a whistleblower? Like, I talked to this astronaut, Chris Hadfield. He's like, well, if you're telling the truth, why do you need a
Chris?
Yeah, he was great. He gave me such a good interview about his new book. But let me just say, as long as there's some capacity for doubt, the human mind will never be satisfied, right? We'll never know exactly, like, to the molecule what happened in Dallas in 1963, right? We'll never know exactly why the Twin Towers, the Building 7 fell down. Yeah, yes, there are theories, and there's always going to be gaps, right? There's always going to be some plausible, kind of outlet that, and as long as that happens, you can never resolve something. We can't even resolve that the moon landing happened. There's a substantial number of people who are alcoholics or felons or truly mentally ill people. Not saying that people that don't believe we landed on the moon, are mentally ill, but I'm just saying, like, 10% of the population are murderers, and alcoholics. And so you're never going to convince everybody that any event happened, the Epstein files or not. Even if, like, Trump's all over it, he was really down there, he's doing everything bad, and it's reprehensible what Epstein did. Nobody denies that. But that this is going to somehow change everything, or, like, Scott Galloway keeps saying, oh, the reason that we have, that Trump is releasing, or is going to declare war on Venezuela, and did, sign these peace accords, and is because he wanted to keep Epstein out of the news. Like, it's so much like wish casting out there. People just, and you can wish anything onto it, such that if you hate America or you love America, you could have plausible, case for your argument. But none of that has to do with the moon landing or quantum computing. So we have to schedule that. Jay, set it up. You got my email. I'll talk to you guys soon. What are you doing for Thanksgiving?
Playing chess, playing in the U.S. Masters in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Awesome. That's close. That's close to you.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll. I have some relatives there that would like to meet you, including one that might want to work on quantum computing. We'll talk about that.
All right, excellent. Well,
okay,
look,
my
Brian,
brothers.
Good luck
Jay.
on your teaching today, and we're going to talk soon about all these other things.
I have to figure out what 6 + 3 = X + 7.
If
you can get me that information, I'll be eternally grateful.
We got to get to the bottom of this.
This November, action is free on Pluto TV. Go on the run with Jack Reacher.
Every suspect was a train killer.
Then buckle up for Drive, World War Z.
Every human being we save is one less fight.
And Charlie's Angels.
Damn, I hate to fly.
Launch into sci-fi adventure with The Fifth Element and laugh through the mayhem in Tropic Thunder.
What is going on here?
All the thrills, all for free. Pluto TV. Stream now, pay never.